Hello and welcome to the official Sea of Thieves podcast. I'm John McMurtry, the head of video production, and today I'm joined by not four as we usually, but three lovely people, starting with...
Joni, executive producer.
I'm Mike Chapman, creative director.
Where is everyone?
you're over there.
It's the middle distance. Just off there, just behind your shoulder.
You're on that one.
Shelley Preston, associate design director.
Now, Shelley, this is the first video you've been in where that's your job title as well.
Ooh, it's actually not. It was there on
On what one?
one of them.
It was.
Was it? Really?
Yeah, it was.
Well,
First podcast.
First podcast
Deep
then,
dive,
okay.
wasn't it? I think
Already seen it. Already.
Let's make a big deal about it
Yeah.
then.
Let's just not make a big deal about it, please.
So, now because it is Christmas themed, you can see we've made all the effort to decorate the tavern very festive. I do have my festive sack here, branded.
Very nice.
And I have gifts for everyone.
What's that?
Really?
I really have gifts for everyone, and because it's Christmas, you know,
Everyone watching.
everyone at this table.
Look under the chair now.
Yeah, exactly. At home, just check under it. No. And because it's Christmas, you know, the appropriate thing to give people on Christmas is a nice pair of socks. So there's a pair of socks for you, Joe.
Sea of Thieves.
go.
as well.
It's winning. I wish I
And a nice pair of socks for you, Mike.
So
There you
nice.
go.
Socks for everyone. I thought it was going to be different, and I
And,
was
a nice pair of socks for you, Shelley. There you go.
genuinely really
Yeah.
excited. Thank you.
And I have one extra little gift in here as well. Let's just see if I can get it. It's in pieces, annoyingly. But if we just construct it very quickly, I'll do this as quick as I can. Just to talk amongst yourselves. There you go. It's roughly right.
Has someone
But
won?
Let's have a look.
it's
Well done.
I put it the wrong way around. Hang on, let's stop that.
Please.
Now I get the intro that was wrong.
This was there we go.
Now you can be like an
Camera can see
80s
that.
bank
like I'm
manager.
going bright red.
There we go.
But yeah.
So you can have that on your desk.
Needs to be on your desk.
Oh yeah.
When I,
On display.
That is.
Just carry it around with me.
What-
There was no expense spared.
Yeah,
That's all
exactly,
I can
yeah.
tell. It looks like it's about to fall apart. But
Nice.
when I ordered it, I was just like, it looks like the one from that video we did with you in black and white. And I was like, well, there you go. That's the one we're having then.
It's all led to this moment, Shelley. It's all led. All this hard work.
That was the manifesting.
yeah.
That video.
To the
So
manifestation.
my festive sack is now emptied.
Thank you,
but,
John.
Are we wearing these now?
you can try and put them on if you want, but maybe save them for later.
I'll save
Save them for later.
Oh God, I've broke it.
It's the thumbnail.
I've broke it.
It's all right.
It's not an omen. Oh my God, it's not.
Get Xbox in,
Right.
Shelley.
As long as you fix it, then it's fine.
Hey, that looks
perfect.
Oh.
That looks great.
I think
Can you put a palm underneath
I've
it
got a
just to
meeting at
support
3, by the way. Just
Oh,
so you know.
right. Okay. Yeah.
it? Keep this in. Keep this in.
Keep it.
Keep this in.
There
What do you
we
want me
go.
to do? Just smile?
Smile, it's a thumbnail.
There you are.
Amazing.
Very good.
Lovely.
It is lovely.
Very nice.
It's very, very embarrassing. But
So now that you've all got your presents, you've got your socks, and Shelley's got her lovely plaque there. She'll be displaying that proudly on her
cherish
desk.
it.
Yep. So yes, let's start our festive quiz. It's not festive at all, but it's a quiz at a festive time. So. What I want all of you to do, in order to get my attention, because I will be you'll be competing against each other. It's every man or woman for themselves. And I need you to make a buzzer sound. Now, it has to be a unique buzzer sound. You can't have the same buzzer sound as someone else. So I'm going to ask Shelley, what do you want your buzzer sound to be?
what now?
What now? Right, okay. What now? Mike, what do you want your buzzer sound to be? Great. And Joe?
Oh.
Oh, right, great. Okay, so you've all got
Those
That's
two,
a
when they
lemming.
start, those
That's
two
a
are going to be
lemming.
quite.
let's figure out whether you actually remember your buzzer sound.
What now?
Oh. So now that we've established what your buzzers are,
It's those two in quick succession.
Let's do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
okay, buzzer sounds at the ready, everyone.
What now?
Great, everyone's got their buzzers
Go the
locked
way like
in.
your sound, then what now? Then
Perfect.
Okay, all right. We're going to start.
Wait, so you ask a question.
And you've got to
we
make
don't
that- if
say-
you- if you know- if
Instead
you know
of
what-
just saying the answer, we're inserting
You've
this
got to-
extra step.
Yes.
No, so that
I'm
you get the
redesigning
right
it
to
on the
answer.
fly.
You get the right
Just
to
for
Are you
no
out
real
if you get it wrong?
mechanical reason.
Yeah,
Wrong.
you're
It's
out for that
just
round.
locked out for
fun.
that question.
Okay, you're locked out for that round if you get it wrong, though. So you only get one attempt.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So, first question.
Genuinely quite nervous.
First question. Here we go.
Look, you're looking.
If I keep my mouth like that, that'd be easier.
Great Photoshop opportunity as well.
Okay. So this is a nice, easy one. You've played the game for how many thousands of hours? You should know this.
No one buzzes.
What equipment item is at the bottom of the first page of the item radial menu? Mike?
Spyglass.
That is incorrect. You're locked out. Okay, I'm going to...
What now?
Oh, Shelley, yes.
Is it the fishing rod?
It's not. Okay, Joe, this is
It's up-
over to you. It's a free chance. You've said... what did you say?
Oh, sorry.
What are you going for?
Oh,
Lantern.
I know it. I know it.
You can't say it now.
Okay, so
what it
you all
is?
got the
All
wrong
wrong.
answer, but what
God.
do you think?
Shovel.
It was the shovel,
It's
Shelley.
the
Yes.
shovel.
Of course it is.
Kinesthetic.
Deep down, yes.
down, of course.
My
That-
mind
that-
went back through
remember
it then.
that,
What would we
20
have
I'm like,
put on down? The
just-
shovel.
So the next one,
I feel like a failure.
there are many answers to this, and I'm only
Okay.
looking for 3. Okay, so if you can name me
What,
3.
one of the 3? Or-
Yeah. So there's like 12 potential answers.
It's really confusing.
There's
Joe.
12 potential
Yeah.
answers here. I only need 3
You
to
need
get
four-
it. So you give me 3 answers to get the question right.
Okay.
Okay. So, can you name 3 variants of cannonballs? Oh, Mike, yes.
Curse cannonballs. Chain shots.
Well, come on, let's name the individual cross
Specifically,
cannonballs.
what do
It's
you-
got to be.
yeah, do you mean specific?
I mean
specifics?
specifically. Yeah.
Okay, jig ball.
Okay.
Chain shot. And grog ball.
Yeah. Okay. I'll accept that. Yep. That's great. Mike gets the
Accept
points
that
there.
'cause it's correct.
It's correct. You could have had peace ball, helm ball, ballast ball, rigging ball, barrel ball, phantom cannonball, flame phantom cannonball, all that stuff. So there we go. Mike has 1 point. He is leading the way. All right. Next
Is
question.
that the only one we've got?
Yeah.
For,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shovel was
We've
late.
got the-
Can't I get like 0.2?
So next question. Everyone buzzers ready?
I thought I was going to go.
Where does a player have to go to start the Heart of Fire Tall Tale? And who is the first person that you speak to? Oh, Mike, yes.
Grace Morrow Speak Outpost.
Morris Peak Outpost is correct, but who's the first character that actually speaks in that sequence in the Tall
Oh,
Tale?
shit.
And you've got it wrong. Okay, we're throwing it open to Shelley or Joe.
I know who it is, but I don't know her name. It's the tavern keeper, but I don't know her name in that one.
I'll give you.
Does it begin with a T?
Is she? It will begin with
It
it.
begins with a T.
It does begin with a T. Of course it does. I'll give the point to whoever can get closest to the name. Go for it. Right, Joe?
It's not Tasha, is it?
No, it's
She's Tallulah.
It is Tallulah, yes.
You're out.
Yeah, you're out.
You've.
It's
Shelley gets the
Tallulah.
point.
It's Christmas.
You
It
didn't.
just came to me.
didn't-
Oh yeah. What now? Tallulah.
All right, okay, so the next question then. This one might be a little bit harder. How many coins, gold coins, does the legendary curse cost? How many gold coins do you need to spend?
Come on.
I have no idea.
Take a guess, anyone then. Remember, you got a buzz in? I won't accept an answer without a buzz. Yes, Mike?
He's thinking so hard.
150,000.
No, that's incorrect. Okay, it's open to...
Give us a high or
Yeah,
lower.
can you give us
It's
a
a
number?
higher. Right. Who's going to buzz in next?
What now?
Oh, Shelley? Yeah.
499,998.
I'm going to give that to you because it's so close that I feel like you knew the answer and you were just going...
No,
It's 500,000.
I was going to say that.
Wow.
You've stolen the opportunity.
So, yeah,
Because your expression on your face gave it away. So she was really close.
That's why I added the 99.
I know you were like, 499,
Right, okay. This is the final question, and this is worth 10 points. Whoever wins it wins. Okay, remember your buzzers. Now there are multiple answers. Again, I'm looking for
Terrible
3.
game design.
I'm looking for 3. So, from the original E3 2015 announced trailer from Sea of Thieves, There were many gamer tags on display.
Oh.
Can you give me 3 of those gamer tags? Oh, Mike, yep.
Shelley Pressgang.
Yeah.
Incorrect.
I was on the wheel.
You may have been there, but not with Shelley Pressgang, you weren't.
Oh. Oh.
So that you're locked out, unfortunately, Mike. It's now open to Shelley and
Well,
Joe.
that would have been one of mine. What now? Cannonball Chris.
No, sorry.
What? Cannonball Chris? He's a classic.
Hold on. So,
Here we go, Joe.
no, what did I say? What was my thing? I've forgotten. I've not even answered the question yet. Yeah.
Okay, Joe, let's see if you can get it here.
I've got it forgotten now. Sprinty John, was he in that? No, he wasn't in that one, was he? He was in the later
one.
one.
Is that the one with Cannonball
All right, I'm gonna open it
Chris?
back up.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
Cannonball Chris and Sprinty
Right,
John.
okay, I'm going to open it back up. So all you get a shot again. Mike.
One Chappers.
Yes. That is one of them. Yep. Yep.
Real Beano.
Oh, yep. That's another one. Yep.
Dread Deno.
Yep.
Oh, he's gone back in
Yeah.
gone back
There
in
you
time.
go.
Oh,
We're talking really old. Yeah, I thought it was
No,
like
you're
the,
right.
you know,
So the options you could have had were Laura Lutz,
Was Grog Mails in there, wasn't it?
Grog Mails 89,
Grog Mails 89.
One Chappers, Real Beano, Singing Chris 96,
Wow.
Dread Deno, Viva Ryan P, Shelley Presto,
There you go.
No.
yeah. Queen Victoria, and Joe 8T.
that's it. This
Sorry.
is a Mandela effect.
Queen
It was
Victoria?
definitely
Queen
Press
Victoria,
Gang.
yeah.
It was Press Gang.
There was someone called
It
Queen
was Press
Victoria.
Gang.
Yeah,
It was
it was
definitely
Press
Shelley
Gang.
Press
No,
Gang.
it's
on
Queen
the-
Victoria. That was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I forgot. I remember Laura Lutz.
Shelley Presto.
That was Victoria.
It-
Hey, Presto. Great.
Mandela effect.
Well, I think because that was such a shambles, you are all winners, and it's Christmas, so everyone's a winner.
Oh.
Mike's the real winner,
You'll
but
get
I'd say that everyone's the winner.
Well done,
Mike.
everyone.
Well done, Mike.
Well done, everyone.
So, yeah, you're free to now have the mince pie of your choice. You don't need to, but no,
I wouldn't have the one that's like
bursting out.
leaking.
Well, no, that's a good sign, isn't it?
And it's because it's bursting with.
Bursting with festive
Flavour.
spirit.
That's the ones we've all been laughing and breathing on.
Yeah, exactly. Covered in spittle.
Actually, there's probably quite a bit of accidental.
Spittage.
So let's chat about highlights for the year then.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a variety of things that we've done this year. I think obviously season 9, the opportunity to go back to the sandbox and give it a bit of a spruce up and a refresh. Like world events are incredibly popular. The chance to go back, that was good. Obviously the social focus of guilds alongside you could argue the solo focus, but the narrative focus of Legend of Monkey Island. I think the variety of things that we've added feels good. I would say that, and this is always the kind of challenge that we're dealing with, which is the time that it takes to plan these things out in detail and when and where things will land and the complexity it takes sometimes to bring these things to life. I think when we look back on 23, like the balance of the year in terms of what we've added, I'd say I don't think we quite got that right. I think the kind of revisiting season 9 was a great opportunity. We were incredibly passionate about collaboration with Lucasfilm and Disney with Legend of Monkey Island, but I think you could say that we've neglected the sandbox a little bit. So, yeah, I think stuff we're very proud of. We're proud of what we've released, but as we look to next year, there's definitely a kind of refocus on the kind of content that we want to add and where we've underserved, I'd say.
Okay, interesting.
So it wasn't really a highlight, was it? Honestly, I think it's best just to be open about it. I think that's where our heads are at. Proud of what we've done, but allows us to refocus on what we need to do now in the coming years.
Yeah, so what are your highlights been for the year, Shelley?
Too many to choose from. Honestly, I think we've done so many cool releases this year, but I think for me, personally, having been really invested in, spent a lot of the time on the team with guilds and how much of a colossal effort that was for the team. There was a lot of work went on behind the scenes for that. So to see that finally land in players' hands and people making their guilds, that was a huge highlight. And then I have to say, it's still early days yet, but Safer Seas as well. Just the kind of step change for Sea of Thieves and what that can do for Sea of Thieves for players in the future, and everything that it brings, I think is just massive. So those are 2 big highlights for me.
Let's just chat about that for a second because you mentioned Safer Seas. So, What was the thinking behind Safer Seas when we decided, all right, okay, this is something we're actually going to go do?
I think, well, we know that because of the nature of our game, at its heart being a shared world sandbox, one of the most community requested features since launch has been the ability to play in a private world. People say PvE servers, but people are asking for more or less the same thing, which is the ability to have the world to yourself and have adventures uninterrupted. And we've talked about it on and off over the years on whether, like, would we ever do something like that? How would we do something like that? And I think what's different about today, over 5 years in, the audience that we have, the way the game has grown to the size of audience that we have. I think the way we think about Sea of Thieves now, and don't groan when I say this. I know you've heard me say this quite a lot, but if you like pirates, there should be something in Sea of Thieves for you. So the game is grown both in its lore, its storytelling, what it means to our players. You know, even going to things like Sea of Thieves Fest, you realise the impact that the world has on people. And rather than say so doggedly to that original, very pure version of the world that was just shared world, that will always be the heart of the game. That's the aspirational way to play Sea of Thieves. But can we give people another window, another doorway into that world? And a backdrop to that is the game has grown incredibly diverse and complex. There's so much content in the game. There's so many systems to engage with. And even from a tutorial perspective, there's only so much we can do to teach people the richness of the game. So that idea of giving people a new route into the game, a new way to learn about the game, felt like the right way to position it. So we kind of found, honestly, a way that we could make ourselves feel comfortable about supporting something like that, in a way that the positioning of it sat really nicely alongside the core way of playing the game, which is that shared world. So, yeah.
And honestly, like as being part of those conversations, we've probably had the same debate, conversation, argument like once a year, every year for a number of years, right? About like, is this something we would do? Is it the right time? Is it the right thing? And I think just over time, kind of, it became harder and harder to answer the question when someone was like, why can't I just play this Disney content with my kid or something? Or why can't I play in this safe way? Like, it was just, there were so many sort of examples of questions people asking. It just became harder and harder to basically go, because we said a while ago we wouldn't, right? and I think, to your point about just the real thought that went into how do we make this fit into Sea of Thieves now and meet the kind of like the questions and the asks and the kind of goals of players that want to come in and play a bunch of this cool content whilst respecting the sanctity of the kind of shared world and what Sea of Thieves is and will always be. And I think, like, you know, like obviously it was a topic of conversation when we announced it and continues to be as we've released it, but I think it's landed in pretty much the best way possible for such a big change to what Sea of Thieves is, right? So like kudos to the thinking and the implementation and of how we went and did that, because I think it's, you know, it's the best version of what we could have done there, I think. So,
and you're right, saying it's a really tricky thing to land, and I'm curious, Shelley, like as you sort of like look ahead now, like, and you're going, okay, we've got these two existing modes and we've got High Seas and Safer Seas. When we're planning out content for the rest of the year, how do you factor that into your thinking now?
I mean, to kind of come back to what you were both saying there in terms of it being that, for me, that kind of perfect way of doing it. Like it's the way that just has made sense and it's at the right time and the right way. And I think that also helps set us up for the future with things like that, because we have a very clear vision of what Safer Seas is, what it's supposed to be, what space it's kind of creating for people, and what High Seas is and what space that's creating for people. So as new things appear in the game, you know, the Skull of Siren song was being developed at the same kind of time as we were developing Safe Seas. It's quite clear to say, well, that's clearly a PvP focused piece of content that doesn't belong in Safer Seas. So it's a kind of case by case basis. But I think because the two kind of seas have their own clear identity, it's going to be, you know, relatively straightforward for us to understand where content should fit.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I was going to say as well, I think the main thing for our players to take away is, like, we see Safer Seas as the kind of the ramp, the doorway into the Sea of Thieves world. It isn't a a separate mode in terms of it's going to develop separately. It is a way to get into that core Sea of Thieves experience. And in contrast to some of the lessons we learned over the years with something like Arena, where the game diverges into two very different game modes and you're maintaining them both separately. We don't want to be in that position where Safer Seas has exclusive features that... And I understand the discussion in the community around, oh, this would be a great way to bring back adventures or do narrative content. And we want the impetus and the encouragement to always be play on the high seas. But if you play Safer Seas and you never make that leap, that's okay. You know, hopefully you're still going to have a magical Sea of Thieves experience, and that's great. But if you love the game and you want to play it long term, there's enough incentive to make the jump to high seas, which is the main way to play.
And obviously, Safer Seas was the most recent thing we've added, but you did just touch on Skull of Siren Song there. We haven't had a podcast since Skull of Siren Song was added. How did everyone think that went down? I'll go to you first, Joe.
Oh, it's great. I loved Hippo, using Biggsy's
so good.
using Biggsy's costume and just hiding and seeing people do that. Just genius, right? And it's exactly the sort of just... It's the sort of thing we know can happen when you start giving out like rewards that are those cosmetics. You kind of know that's the sort of thing that might happen, but to see it play out and to see him announce it like the Jackass kind of thing, which is just so good. This is the Briggsy steal or whatever, the Briggsy cosplay steal. Really made me chuckle. I thought it was fantastic. But it's, you know, you put those ingredients into the shared world. It's the sort of stuff that can happen, right? And that is, to your point about, you know, Safer Seas is an on-ramp to the high seas, like that is Sea of Thieves, like that is it, and it's heart in its nutshell. So I loved all of the play tests that happened, all of the internal kind of stuff that happened there, the different teams that worked on it as well, both here and in our Code of Partners as well, that kind of worked together to make that. I think it was a fantastic addition, and I love to see the stories come out of it, and so great work and kudos to everybody involved as well as everyone out there playing it and having fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, we've an update. I think we've all in our own ways described as like a classic Sea of Thieves update. And I think what we mean by that is at its heart, it's so simple. It's a chest that needs a key and there's an X marks the spot map. But that's not the gameplay. The gameplay is what happens in between. That just creates the space for the real stories and the gameplay to happen. And I can't believe it's taken us over 5 years to the idea of like sharing a map. And we've talked about it, but delivering it in that way, almost like a new kind of world event where it's delivered to your ship, I think is a really interesting area where we can explore. We don't have anything planned. This is not a Sea of Tease. But I do think it's a way we can think about an alternative style of world event in the future where you are bringing the whole world together, the whole server together around one singular united goal.
That shared maps thing, though, is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, right?
It is. Yeah, but packaged it nicely.
Yeah.
And you touched briefly on it, Shelley, but I was curious to hear what the other guys thought about when Guilds came out, at the start of Season 10. Any highlights from that?
Yeah, I mean, Guilds is another example of a feature that we probably talked about before the initial launch. I think we prototyped it to some degree, didn't we? But that idea of a system that allows you to create a social group in the game where your relationship with others exists outside of a session. It's like, again, it's one of those features that it's taken us a while to do, but it's something we've talked about for many years. And the complexity of that feature, there's so much to land around solidifying that social bond, creating the identity around it. It's a great thing for us to build upon in the future as well. Now we've got the concept of these social groups working together. So yeah, another thing that we've wanted to do for a while. And like, I'll link it back to what I said earlier around maybe not getting the balance right of content that we've added. There's been a focus on now's the time to do these things. Now's the time to build these foundational systems that are going to pave the way for the future of Sea of Thieves. Maybe we just did them all too fast. Maybe we just didn't get that balance right. And we've got stuff in development now that's really focused on expanding the way that you can play in the game. But beyond that, like, getting that balance right and focusing more on the sandbox is where we want to be.
Yeah, let's just chat a bit about that then, actually.
Can I just say my favourite thing about guilds? It's looking at the names, all the guild names and stuff, right? And seeing how many are in the same. So, Like, I think we all know what the number one was, right? That was in there.
I've forgotten now.
The Straw Hat Pirates. Wasn't
It was. It
Yeah,
was.
the amount of people that named their guilds the Straw Hat Pirates, which is interesting. Is what's that about? I don't know.
I know, and it was like right around the release of the series.
But yeah, no, like it's cool. It is great, right? And I think I tweeted about it, but I actually love watching the One Piece series, right? The
new
kind
one,
of the live action one on Netflix and everything. Because my first introduction into that world, apart from seeing loads of profile pics on Twitter with the hats on, but no, it's kind of fun to see like people again like who love that world in our world, kind of role playing and using guilds to kind of to express their love for it and stuff. So yeah, it's no, I love that. Like that was definitely the top one. I can't remember like all of the others, but it was interesting to hear like even beyond that actually seeing some of our people in our community who were kind of creating community guilds almost outside of just the system, are going, hey, let's all name it this way, and we can start creating our own sort of rules and hierarchies and stuff kind of out in Discord or everywhere else. It's like that kind of creativity is amazing. Right?
Where guilds is at the moment and the functionality guilds has right now, is that kind of where we see it stopping, or is that something we would expect?
I think, as Mike said, like it's a foundational system, and I think our focus is going to be like more on expanding the sandbox and areas of gameplay there. But I think like guilds are a system that has got more to give, if you can see if Tease it that way.
Got you. Cool. Nice. So you mentioned obviously, Mike, maybe not getting the balance 100%.
Yeah.
I was just curious to get Joe and Shelley's thoughts on that and kind of what we've learned from this year. You're like, oh, maybe we could have done that bit better.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with a kind of a metaphor that I was talking about yesterday with these two actually, but that you know where it's going, yeah. No, but live, like running a live game, like running this kind of ongoing game that's live all the time, and people are playing it all the time. There's things happening, like things we plan, things we don't, and having to kind of just like almost just keep going as that flows along. Like it kind of feels that like at times that you're just sort of in this river flowing along this fast flowing river, and you're just kind of just trying to keep your head above water and dodge the things that are coming and find things that will get your head a bit above more, and you never get a chance to just jump out and go and breathe. But actually, like at the end of the year, especially kind of once we ship Safer Seas, that's kind of our final release, and it starts to slow down a little bit kind of as people are starting to head off for Christmas. You really start to get that time to think and reflect. And so I'm in that sort of mode at the moment, right? But in fact, yeah, finally jumped out the river for a little bit before we dive back in the new year. But because it is that, it's just that fast-paced thing is that you kind of quite often don't get a chance to stop and think. And
It's relentless.
yeah, and so I think probably, especially maybe the second half of this year or something, but as we've been kind of observing and listening to sort of sentiment in the community about what the content is that's coming, about some of the delays that we've had, about some of the bugs and challenges, like there's been the cheating kind of topic, there's been hit reg as an ongoing thing, amongst other stuff. And so you kind of just, when that's happening, you're just trying to react and trying to go, what's our best plan? What can we do whilst we're still working towards delivering this? But you're starting to think ahead, right? You're starting to think about, okay, like while we try and just deal with these things and kind of and deliver the things that we're working on. Okay, how do we fold this into the plans for beyond? And it can be quite bruising, right, for us as a team to sit there working on what stuff that we're like, this is cool, and then people are like, yeah, but I want some stuff in this area. I want stuff in this area. It can be quite like, all right, like maybe I'll get off to Twitter for a while, or I'll kind of just to kind of protect yourself as you're working towards the things you're working on. We're in that place now, though, as we look at the new year. I think our plans are very much about, right, let's kind of listen, because I think it's fair. Some of the feedback is fair, right, about that we haven't quite managed to find the right focus and the right split and the right rhythm of delivery for our players. And so our plans for the next year are very much in that space, right? It's about, okay, cool, fair feedback. We hear it, we're listening. So really looking at how do we go reinvigorate the sandbox? How do we make sure we're on top of those hot topics? And we're really kind of working through those and delivering those. And we're not, making the easy mistake sometimes of actually prioritizing cool stuff versus fixing things that are going wrong a bit and stuff. Like, because you can kind of sometimes get yourself a bit too excited about
stuff we've never done before.
Yeah,
It's like a bit of an Achilles heel
Yeah,
for us. That
yeah.
temptation to go, oh, we've done loads of sandbox updates. Let's do something they'll never expect. And like, it's not always the right thing for the community.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Yeah. So I think we're definitely in that reflective mode and listening mode, and I think, you know, as we look at the year ahead, trying to get back into that regularity of delivery and making sure that we kind of meet that expectation of regular seasons and regular releases, that we really kind of reinvigorate the sandbox and kind of listen to that kind of core feedback, was staying on top of any of those hot topics and really making a kind of dent into the hit rate like topic, honestly, like of all of the things, like along with the anti-cheat stuff we've already talked about, but like that hit rate thing is proper kind of getting a bigger focus than ever before. So yeah, it's but it's like I said, it can be tough running at this because it's such a you never get a chance to stop and breathe and just kind of, and so, but like I said, at the end of the year kind of gives you that chance. And but yeah, it's been I think I know it's been a mixed year for some of the community, right, in terms of sort of sentiment, and that makes it a mixed year for us too, right, in terms of, because we live and breathe that, right? So but it's nice to have that time to just breathe and look at the year ahead, and kind of I think we've got some exciting stuff that I'm sure we can do some Sea of teasing on in a little bit about for the year ahead, right? Why not? It's Christmas, yeah. Let's give out some little gifts. But, yeah.
Just to stay in this for a second longer, then I think, like you said, part of acknowledging player sentiment is literally that, acknowledging it. And obviously something we've done recently. It's not here today, as you might notice. Shelley's by herself on that side of the table. But Drew has obviously had a spot in Sea of Thieves news for the past few months now. And that was part of a push to sort of say, we know this is, and we're trying our hardest. So why do you think it's, well, obviously it's obvious why it's important, but like, how open can we be about some of this stuff, do you think? Like,
so I'll quickly jump in. I'll let you both kind of hit that one. But that's something that kind of speaks close to my heart, because if I think a couple of years ago, a few years back, I used to speak to the community very regularly, right? I used to do the weekly dev updates and everything. And it got to a point where that was just like, there wasn't enough to talk about. And I was just filling time talking about stuff, right? Every Tuesday I'd come here and record things. And arguably, I'd say that we've probably, we've taken too long to get back into that rhythm when we started getting some of this stuff emerging. And I think, again, that speaks to the, we're just running to keep we're just always sprinting and running, and you don't really get a chance to go, let's find the time to go do that. But I'm really glad that we have now, and I'm glad that Drew's kind of taken that by the horns with the community team, with the video team, to go, right, let's get back in front, let's start talking about this. You know, I know there's been a lot of people internally going, we should be doing that more. So finally finding time to do it is great, and I think Drew does a great job doing it as well, and kind of fronting up on some of the harder topics to talk about. So yeah, but I'll let other...
Yeah, I mean, there's some things we can't talk about. Strategies and things we're taking on board when it comes to that kind of the cheating situation, but there's obviously some things that we can talk about, and I think that's why Drew's section has been so useful. I think beyond game health and kind of the integrity of the experience, which is, as Joe mentioned, a renewed focus for us, a huge focus. I think just being able to get ahead a little bit more and inform people about what we're planning feature-wise is something we want to do a better job of in the future, which is actually laying out a bit more of a plan, maybe not so detailed, but like what the shape of the year is going to be, and what kind of features that players can look forward to. I think that's important as well, because when we're so close to things internally, and you know what players are going to get this month, and they're going to get that in the next season, you have to remind yourself that players have just got a very, very short horizon of what the next season is, and I think we need to do a better job of inspiring and exciting for what's coming next.
As a designer, like, how do you find that challenging, sort of revealing things a bit earlier than sometimes we've maybe done in the past, Shelley?
No, I love it. Makes me less likely to do it by accident if it's already out. And no, I do, because I think, like, to some extent, obviously, you don't ever want to... things change so much on, like, a day-to-day basis when you're developing features. And so you have to be mindful of, like, sharing, I guess, the overall intent or the shape of features, as Mike says, without necessarily details, because they can change so rapidly. But I think being more open, like, it's part of our identity. I think if you think back to Whiteboard Joe, it's like being open about that stuff. And I think we do tend to do we talk a lot when we've released features or we're releasing features, we'll do the podcast or the deep dives, and we talk so much about why we've done things the way we've done things or what the thinking was. But the more kind of, I guess, like player to player, like the exploits or the kind of very, very kind of gnarly details about things. I think it's awesome that we're doing that now with Drew, because I think that's kind of a bit of a gap, and it's just important for people to know, like, we do get it and we are listening, but we probably just haven't communicated that out in a while.
Yeah. And can I just looking back, I was just thinking a bit more about lessons and about what we've learned this year. And so if you think about guilds, was one of our biggest, most complex features that we've done, like probably ever, right? In terms of just the different amounts of or different types of teams working out, how it connected so many different parts of the game together, kind of under the hood. And we look at captaincy was another challenging one, kind of a year ago. And so those are two big lessons for us, that actually going and doing something big and complex and new, that is kind of one big feature, that is not just an array of different things that enrich a sandbox for something. It's one big thing. Like, actually just going, hey, we're going to tie that to a season and we're going to go deliver that in this time frame, is really hard, and if not impossible, right? Because you can only scale it down so far in terms of what you want to deliver. And after a part of time, you're like, that's it, that's the feature. We can't go any further than that, and we've just got to deliver it. And kind of guilds was an example of that, right? And so you end up just going, we've got to give it the time it needs. And when that's tied to a season, then the season moves and everything kind of shuffles out of place. And so like that as a lesson, being like, we aren't going to go take like a big feature like that and tie it to a season future. If we want to go do that, we'll find a way to spin it up with the team and just go like, here's what we think the kind of core is. Let's go work at that. Let's have like a window when we think it might ship. And then as we get closer and we start to get more confidence, certainty, that's when we start thinking about, okay, how are we going to go and release this as part of our rhythm? Whereas when we're looking at seasons for next year, we're very much going, right, how do we kind of think about, just in the planning stage, how do we make those scalable? Like, how do we have different kind of levels that we can take that to, and it will still be like a great season, so that we can have that regularity of rhythm. So because I know, you hear feedback in the community of just remove, separate all your features from seasons and do that. And it's like, and probably some people on the team would say the same, but, but you want at the start of the season the reason to come back, or something to excite you, something to kind of that's going to give you something new to kind of to play with. So we want to make sure we do that, but then make sure that we can deliver that regularity. And so that's something that we're just, as we look into the year ahead and beyond, with like in all of our planning sessions, it's a real thing. We're kind of going, how do we do that? And we're really pushing ourselves to make sure that we have that regular rhythm of releases for people to get excited about. And so our planning is really taking into account everything we've learned over the last couple of years, which is, that's at our level, at the kind of leaders of the project level, of kind of, we set out with those goals. And so when that doesn't get delivered on time, that's on us. That's our accountability to kind of to kind of understand. It's like, it's not anyone on the team that's gone and delivered against that. It's kind of like we've planned that at the highest level. And so that's us. That's on our accountability to take that into the future planning. So
a collection of things that are scalable is probably the closest you're going to get to appealing to a broad kind of Sea of Thieves audience. I think one of the things that we are aware of is there actually isn't a magic recipe. There isn't a recipe for, this is exactly what the community wants. Well, this is what this part of the community wants. But you're never going to get that recipe where everybody just loves it. Everyone's at different stages of their pirate journey. They've got different tastes because the game is so diverse and so broad. I think Captaincy and Guilds definitely speaks to that one massive, immovable feature that's a huge investment for us, like time and energy. And it'll land with some people and it won't land with everyone. So we need to be a little bit smarter about what we go after.
You mentioned there, obviously, that there's feedback from the community around topics like that. And like, I happen to have some feedback from the community in front of me here and questions as well. I'm going to start with something that...
Is this podcast live? You didn't tell us.
They've been listening in, and they are not impressed. This is actually one, I'll throw this to Mike, because this is quite lore focused, but it might also...
I'm excited.
...be a potential Sea of Thieves.
Okay.
With Flameheart's eventual return, will we...
Back.
He's not coming back. All right, okay. Then we can move.
No.
Actually left the scene.
With his eventual return,
yes.
Will we get any more Reapers and Skeleton cosmetics? It's a cosmetic question.
yes.
There we go. Yeah.
No. I mean, when we haven't followed up very fast with that stuff, but there is. When we added the skeleton cosmetics, the skeleton curse in the first place, of course, the thinking in mind was that was a track, a journey, a progression that players will go on. So you will see that expanded in time. Yes.
There's another one here, and this could be to anyone, but they're asking about whether the Kraken is ever going to get a little bit of TLC, because other world events got a bit of love and attention, but the Kraken really hasn't had much done to it in a while. Is that something we would ever consider?
I think it's a symbolic question in terms of where do we want to spend our time?
Got you.
Should we go back to a feature? I mean, full disclosure, I would love to. If I could pause time, I would love to go back to the Crackers. I'm sure many of the team would love to as well. And honestly, I know this doesn't answer the question because it's locked away in a tall town. It's not sandbox value, but that was part of the motivation for featuring the Kraken so heavily in the Sunken Pearl as part of a pirate's life. And again, you don't see it outside of the tail, so you could argue that doesn't count. But that was kind of where the thought process came from. I would love to. I think doing something like that, though, there'd be an equal part of the community asking for something completely fresh and new.
Yeah.
So never say never. I think myself, a lot of us would love to do something like that, but we just got to have that balance in mind of, do we just want something completely new to invigorate the sandbox?
Well, it's funny, you mentioned this tension between the desire to focus on new things and sometimes to focus on things that are in need of attention. Like, I'm curious, Shelley, what your thoughts are on that tension, that balance there. Like,
the tightrope walk. Yeah, I think, well, I don't know what to say beyond the fact that it is a tension and a balance. Like, as Mike said, like, we've literally had quite deep conversations about the Kraken and about potential things to do there, but as Mike said, kind of came to the conclusion that at that moment in time it wasn't the right thing to do. And I think timing comes into it as much as anything. It's like, when is it the right time and the right, the right kind of time in the calendar and the right amount of scope that we've got on a team to kind of be able to tackle some of that. But I think it's something we just need to bear heavily in mind as we look to next year, right? Like the balance between, TLC for the old school while also invigorating and doing new stuff.
And I think, like, right now, with where we're at, with everything we've shared about 2023, we would prioritise freshness and newness.
Yeah.
I think where the Kraken sits in the gameplay, like, separate the fact that it's got tentacles and it's that tone, a sea monster. It's something that, it's an emergent surprise moment that happens out there on the adventures. Like, we could go and enrich that, but are there other parts of your journeys that need more enrichment? Arguably, yes. So I don't think we prioritise that right now, but never say never. It would be nice to go back one day.
Now, this is another, it's interesting because a lot of these questions talk about going back to and reinvigorating things that are already in the game. There's a question here about, is there any chance that we could get a Hunter's Call emissary and maybe Meg voyages with Hunter's Call?
Sweating a little bit. I think, like, we don't have plans to do that next year, or certainly early. But again, it's one of those things that comes up. Like, there are certain things that come up over and over again. Time will kind of tease them out, and I'm sure, like, we'll do more things with Hunter's Call at some point, but it's not something that's kind of on the radar right now, and it's hard to explain why without being able to say all the cool other things as to why. But I will point out that if you do have a guild emissary, you can earn emissary for fishing and Hunter's Call activities, so it's kind of a little bit of a Hunter's Call emissary. stealth way of doing it.
And all I will say is we've talked about plans. There is no specific plans at the moment, but around the Hunter's Call. But I think an observation we have made that I'm sure the community will agree with, which is not much hunting going on in the Hunter's Call, is there? There's lots of fishing and cooking, but the role of being a hunter in the world and hunting things is not really there. So
reserved for players, isn't it?
it is. And I just think that is a huge creative opportunity. With that kind of Moby Dick style of sea monsters and hunting. It to be a huge investment. We've talked about it, but no plans at the moment.
But being able to do that justice and kind of do it properly is kind of above and beyond, like, some of the smaller aspects of Hunter's Call.
Yeah. This is the last one I'll take from the community here, and this is another lower one.
Tough.
Lower one for you, Mike. Where's Flameheart? What's he doing? What's his morning routine?
Did you add the what's the morning?
No,
routine?
that is literal.
Deep
We
yoga.
talked specifically about where he was yesterday, if you remember.
Oh, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to make some stuff up. Meditation,
Pilates.
fire walking.
Firewalk.
Big fan of fire walking. He's on his
Sauna?
way.
He's on his
Sauna.
way.
He's on his way. No, he's yeah, I mean, players will have noticed the orb.
Oh, aye.
So we'll have noted the orb at the Reaper's hideout. And while we won't be having an orb stream this year, keep an eye on the orb for what's happening with Flameheart's plotting and how we will eventually emerge in the Sea of Thieves. So yeah, keep an eye on the orb and keep talking to it.
Orb confirmed.
Orb confirmed. So that was a mini tease. Is there any other teases? Like, so you've all actually sort of subtly alluded to a change in maybe the sort of style of update for the beginning of certainly the first half of next year.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about that would players can maybe expect?
I think, okay, so I'm going to start with, I think as Joe said, the focus on hit reg and improving the reliability of that. Like, got work to do there. Like that feedback from the community on what it actually feels like live when we roll out improvements that we're confident in. How does that then propagate across the community, and what's their actual everyday experience using it? We're going on a journey with getting that right. If we're able to do that, there's an exciting space with how we could expand. It gives us a license to go expand weaponry alongside what you traditionally consider tools in the sandbox.
Yeah.
So love to add new weapons to the sandbox, love to add new tools. Flameheart will feature prominently. And I will say, like, Flameheart, not just in the sense of you don't do one update for Flameheart and then Flameheart's done to the end of time. But I think the start of Flameheart's back, and it's the start of what he's up to and what he's doing, but that's going to grow over time and other features that relate to Flameheart. So yeah, I think tools, sandbox, Flameheart, I think that kind of sums up the focus for 24.
Without giving details away, Shelley, what excites you about next year?
Ooh. Honestly, the Flameheart is a very exciting part of next year. But also for me, season 11 next year is super exciting. It's one that perhaps you wouldn't think it on paper, but actually playing that and seeing like a kind of very we haven't talked about it, have we? So I'm trying to be very talk around it. Yeah. It's just awesome, and it changes kind of at a fundamental level some very key things about Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So yeah, season 11, which is January. Yeah. Yeah, but like it's almost kind of, that's almost one of the last fundamental kind of big season pieces that we've been working on, right? Like with Guilds was one, and
Systemic.
Captaincy was one. Yeah, that big sort of system sort of change to Sea of Thieves, which we feel kind of puts the foundations in for the next phase of Sea of Thieves, the next 5 years, right? And you know, it's had a real clear focus behind it, right? In terms of actually
the impact could be huge. Yeah, it is a huge fundamental update.
Yeah, you know, and so for people coming back to Sea of Thieves, playing Sea of Thieves, how Sea of Thieves will feel now in terms of just going out on voyages, the ability to have shorter session options. So, you know, Sea of Thieves at its height is a very long average session length game. We know this, right? You have to set aside an evening, a whole day just to kind of go and have some fun and get some kind of, you know, some satisfaction out of it. We think that Season 11 actually gives a kind of fundamental shift in that. And also for people who are new to Sea of Thieves or coming back after a long time, actually just generally how that surfaces like where stuff is and brings up to the surface a lot of the stuff that exists in Sea of Thieves. It's like it's a fundamental shift and change, and we won't go into to too much detail around there, but it's kind of the last one of those that then sets us up as we head into the rest of the year, which is when that focus on sandbox and like Flameheart's return and some of the combat stuff Michael alludes to, but like there's like That it sets us up really
It's a really
well for that.
exciting year.
It is. And it's like, if you think Safer Seas is one of the biggest changes to Sea of Thieves, Season 11 is even more so.
It is.
Like, yeah.
It is. Yeah, like you say, in January, that's the way I've always thought about it. Is it's the last time that the boundaries of the world and the things you kind of do at the highest level kind of expands, and then it's all about enriching, variety, interest, sandbox. It's all kind of filling the game below that. So, like, we are like captaincy, guild, Safer Seas. What Season 11 is these kind of expand what you can do in Sea of Thieves. Now you engage with the experiences, but then it's about more new experiences.
So it sounds like there is a lot to look forward to next year for sure. Like a lot of exciting stuff, like you say. We've had a lot of foundational changes this year. Time to enrich the sandbox next year. Well, that's us out of time on the Sea of Thieves podcast. So thank you very much for joining us. If you've been watching us, remember to hit that 4K button to see us in extra crisp detail. If you've just been listening to us, I apologise. But that's us for the year. So we're going to see you in 2024. And yeah, it'll be a great year. Join us again.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you just saw and want to stay up to date with all the latest Sea of Thieves news, then hit subscribe and click that little ship's bell for all those notifications. Cheers.